I haven't done a video in a while, and I thought I'd bring it back. We've done a lot in the Todd household lately. We got a new puppy, Mac, and he's keeping us really busy. But I thought, it's been about a month. I want to bring this Just for Friends back to life. What better timing, though, is I've really been thinking about my mom lately. She passed away a few years ago, and after Mother's Day, a lot of stories kept coming back into my mind. This is actually one that I didn't have on my list to add for Just for Friends. So it's kind of cool to start thinking about my mom. This was a kind of a scenario that we both were in when I was younger, and it ended up actually saving one of her friends' life. So without further ado, this is Just for Friends. This story starts when I was about 11 years old, and I was a Boy Scout. And in my small town, we only had about 5 members in the Boy Scout troop. So when it came around to selling popcorn, as you probably see now, a lot of kids standing outside like Hy-Vees, back in the day, I would actually go door to door. So my mom would throw me and my brother and sister in the minivan. We would drive around our small town. We would drive around the neighboring towns sometimes, and we would sell door-to-door popcorn. It was a thing that we liked to do as a family. It was kind of weird, but at the same time, it was an adventure. It let us get out, and my mom was actually trying to show me how I could be an entrepreneur, I guess, or show me some kind of business skills, which was all fun, but at the same time, I was just in it to compete, win some cool prizes. I actually came up this year when this story happened, and I won my regional title of having the most sales of any individual. So I ended up winning 2 10-speed mountain bikes and a basketball goal. Enough humble brags, let's get into the nuts and bolts of the story. My mom and I were actually pulling up to one of her friend's house, Joyce Ryberg, and we saw that Joyce's car was actually in the driveway. So my mom's like, hey, go up to the door. I'm sure Joyce, will buy. She's one of our closest friends. Go ahead and go knock. So I start knocking on the door, no answer. And I ring the doorbell a few times and no answer. So I look back to my mom and I'm just like, what's going on? And is she home or not? My mom's like, she's here, just bang harder. So I start banging on the door as loud as I can, being an 11-year-old kid. And then I hear something and I could tell she's actually coming to the door. So I was like, oh, she's coming. So Joyce gets to the door and she's like, oh, hey, Jeremiah. And the next thing I know, her eyes roll back in her head and she literally faints
and falls through the screen door,
knocking it wide open, and I just jump out of the way. Honestly, until you put yourself in that situation, you don't know what you're gonna do. I was a little kid. I was 11, I was scrawny, I was skinny, I probably weighed 80 pounds. Joyce was actually taller than the average woman, and she probably came in at 6'2" or so. So when she actually fell, it would have literally crushed me like a ton of bricks. So I jumped out of the way, and unfortunately that meant that Joyce actually hit the concrete. So immediately I look back to my mom like, what do we do? And my mom comes flying out of the minivan, Joyce, and we're both trying to pick Joyce up, and she's now coming a little bit too, but she really was still kind of fuzzy and unconscious. I remember my mom getting up and she said something that's every kid's dream. You dial 911. So I hustle into the house, I find the phone, and I call 911. I give them the information that they need to come over to Joyce's house and help rescue her. The paramedics finally get there after a few minutes, and we're at that point, Joyce is talking to us, but she's still on the ground, and we don't want to move her just in case anything was wrong. So we're just trying to keep her as comfortable as possible. After the paramedics actually take control of the situation, we kind of take a step back, but we hang out because we want to make sure that Joyce is okay. At this time, the paramedics come over and talk to us about the situation, how it had happened, how I had knocked on the door and kind of got our report of it. And they found out that she actually had high levels of carbon monoxide in her house due to some kind of HVAC problem. So it was one of those situations where she was drowsy, she wasn't able to actually think straight. It actually caused her to pass out in the situation. And if we wouldn't have been there as relentless knocking on that door, there is a chance that Joyce just would have never woken up. That's just the sad truth of it. Being a Boy Scout in the moment, I wasn't looking for a key to the city.
Don't you mean town?
Or a street named after me.
Yeah, for a population of 600.
I literally just kept on selling popcorn. If I can remember correctly, I think my mom and I even stopped by a couple more houses on our way home, as we were that set on making sure that I sold as much popcorn as possible. Now, the Boy Scouts train you in a lot of situations. Maybe saving someone out on thin ice, or creating a fire from scratch when you're in a survival situation. But must have missed the meeting when they talked about carbon monoxide poisoning when you're selling popcorn. I hope I made my troop 438 proud back in Leeton, Missouri. But at the same time, this moral of the story is really, if your gut, or in this case your mom, is telling you to keep knocking, make sure that you do. Because in this case, Joyce could have been knocking on heaven's door.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Hey, hey, hey,